out with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week we are joined by a Hope, Arkansas native who recently made a trip out west to what I consider the most beautiful venue in the world. We'll get her take on that in just a second, but she's here to talk about her journey from rodeo anthem singer to playing the Grand Ole Opry and then whatever comes next. Let's welcome to the show Miss Mae Estes. Mae, how are you?
I am so good and so excited to talk to you today.
We are very excited to have you on. We've been following your career for a few years, and we're excited to let everybody in on the secret.
Let's go.
We'll tee off with Mae next.
It's time to tee off with Ty. Here comes the first four.
Okay, Mae, here we go. Question number one, and this one's either the hardest or the easiest question that I'll ask you the whole time. What is your ideal vacation?
Man, that is a hard question for me because I don't turn my brain off very easily. So I would say anytime I try to actually have a bunch of activities and things, that's not usually the move. Lately, my ideal vacation is to go down to a riverbank and sit in a lawn chair and do absolutely nothing but that. That's my ideal.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic vacation. Just get away in the woods next to the river and have everybody leave you alone for a little bit.
Yeah, just a little peace and quiet and some nature. I really love to be outside lately. I spend so much time in a van or on a plane or in a corporate kind of office on Music Row. So anytime I can get my feet on the ground, I'm all about it.
So this one's kind of the opposite. You're a new homeowner. What's been the most surprising part of this home ownership for you?
The fact that a bank gave me a loan and let me buy a house.
Same. I know how that feels. You get that paper, you're like, oh, for me?
I finally stopped asking questions. I was like, there's no way these people are just going to give me this much money. Someone must have gotten some wrong information. I'm a broke musician. So mostly just shocked I even had the financial opportunity to purchase property. That's obviously been a massive goal of mine my whole life. And where I come from, owning a house is top of your priority list. So I just can't believe I get to own dirt.
You check that one off of the life goals list.
Yes. And now I'm anxious to see all of the homeowner problems that I'm going to have, one at a time that you never thought of before. But I'm really, really grateful.
Okay, question number 3. If you could bring a fictional or historic character to life and hang out with them for a day, who would it be and why?
I would say it still counts as a fictional character. I'm obsessed with the show New Girl, which is Zooey Deschanel, and her character is Jess. And I just think it would be really cool to get to hang with Jess, that character, for a day, because I just think we have the same sense of humor. That show has helped me through a lot of hard times, just making me laugh. And I would love to explore the world with Jess from New Girl.
That is such a great show too. I think it's very underrated.
It's hard to pick a character. I have to pick Jess because she's the whole sentiment of the show. But any character from that show, I would genuinely love to just experience in real life.
We'll just send you there to hang out in the apartment all day.
Maybe they'll bring it back and I'll get to be a guest star on an episode. Let's manifest that.
There you go. Zooey Deschanel, we know you're listening. You heard it. Bring on Mae Estes when you guys bring it back. Okay.
Holla at your girl.
Question number 4, last one of the first 4. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything other than money, alcohol, tacos, Pepsi, guitar strings, scotch tape, whatever it is, what would it be?
It's either mushrooms, which is funny because I love mushrooms on absolutely everything. And that's a new thing I've discovered in my life. I used to hate them, and now I want mushrooms on literally everything. Either mushrooms or mac and cheese. Mac and cheese would just be nice to have on, just like a keg of mac and cheese, just continually.
There you go. Let's be honest. That sounds like a fantastic evening. A keg of mac and cheese and New Girl on the TV.
It's never bad, I'll tell you that.
Well, Mae, thank you for playing along. Guys, that was the first 4 presented by Farm Jam Festival. It's real music, real people on a real farm, Labor Day weekend in Colville, Washington. Get 25% off your admission with code TEAPARTY. That's TEE Party at checkout at farmjamfestival.com. But now it's time to turn our attention all the way to you, Mae, and let's get to know you a little bit better. Let's start with the Cliff Notes version of growing up in Arkansas and tell us how you first got into music.
Yeah, well, in Southwest Arkansas, there is not a whole lot to do. You kind of got to get creative from a young age. And so I found a love of singing, honestly, as soon as I was old enough to start talking and making noise. And was just that kid that was always trying to entertain everybody and, putting on shows in the living room and all of that. And I grew up rodeoing. And so my mom ran the books for the rodeo. And so she was always in charge of playing the Leanne Rhymes version of the national anthem before we would start the rodeo. And I just told her one day that she was wasting an opportunity, that she had the real deal country star right there in front of her that could sing the national anthem, and she needed to give me a shot. And so she handed me a microphone and sent me to the middle of the arena and let me publicly embarrass myself for the first time and sing the national anthem. And that's kind of where I caught the bug. I just realized I had some kind of innate bravery to where I wasn't scared to try things like that you very much should be scared of. And then I got a lot of great feedback afterwards from the crowd and from just other humans who were either entertained by it, thought it was funny, thought it was sweet, just enjoyed it. And it made me feel seen. It seemed to make them feel seen. And so that's where I really decided that God had given me some kind of gift that I still don't really understand to this day. But God had given me some kind of gift of connecting with people, and music was the path for me from then on.
Well, and you knew it right there. It's 7 getting out there in the middle of a rodeo arena. I feel like that's kind of just a core memory that's going to stick with you forever. But the fact that you were able to take that and kind of chase that dream for as long as you have, kind of based off of that one thing is tremendous. Do you come from a family with a musical background at all, or was this Mae kind of doing her own thing?
So I would say my mom's dad, my grandpa, who I was not super close to, but he was in a bluegrass band before I came along. So there was definitely something in our genetics, just a love of music and a natural ability to learn instruments quickly and things like that. And so it definitely lived in my family genes somewhere. And then my mom loves to sing, but has always been very shy about it. And so she just always had music playing nonstop. There was just a soundtrack to our life. No matter what we were doing, there was some kind of music playing in the background. And so I just got a love of classic country instilled in me from such a young age through my mom. I credit her for a lot of that. So I think I was surrounded by music, but honestly, the opportunity to do it for a living was just not there. Arkansas is still developing music venues and music communities and things, and a lot more than when I was there, but there was nothing when I was growing up. And so that's kind of where the setting my sights on Nashville came from. Was I was a little fish out of water in Arkansas as far as wanting to be a famous country singer for a living. That was not something I thought I would be able to do from small town Arkansas. And so I was a little bit of an odd duck. I think I had some different priorities and goals and dreams than a lot of people around me, but I will say there's a massive love of country music where I come from.
Well, and you were able to take that love and build on it through high school, as you were growing up, but you actually got your first radio play before you even left high school, right? It was on an AM station locally with Billy Harrell.
Yeah, so look at you digging up baby Mae stuff. Yeah, we got to sing on an AM radio show every Tuesday night in Glenwood, Arkansas, with Billy Harrell and his House of Guitars, just music museum in small town Glenwood, Arkansas. And I don't remember the competition, but I'm pretty sure it was a Colgate Country Showdown. When I was still really young, probably 9 or 10. And he was a judge in that talent competition. And I did not win. I didn't win hardly any of those competitions because I just stood there with my hands glued to my side and sang my Broken Wing cover and went on about my business. But he did see some kind of potential in me and saw how much I loved it and invited me to play on that show. And then, it spiraled into something much bigger. And so for a few years, every Tuesday night, my parents drove me to Glenwood, Arkansas, which was at least 2 hours from my hometown one way and back on a school night. Tuesday nights, we went and recorded Front Porch Pickin', which was an AM radio show that was broadcasted to England. I mean, all over. It was so crazy, and I got fully immersed in classic country music and learned from some of the best.
I mean, international radio. I mean, that's the way to kick off a career. No doubt about it at all. So you had all of this excitement. You came up, you graduated high school, but you didn't move straight to Nashville right away. You did the responsible adult thing and went to college, but moving to Nashville was always the goal, right?
Yeah, I think I had watched artists like Dolly Parton, who had built a brand and a business out of country music, and were able to make a lot bigger differences that way in the world and helping people. And so that's why I think Nashville caught my eye early. Was I wanted to make a living off playing country music and use it, to leave the world a better place than I found it. And so I thought I'd have to go to the mecca of all of that, which was Music City in Nashville. And so, yeah, my sights were set on that, honestly, from probably 5th or 6th grade. And my mom and I came and toured Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee, which is like, that's just what you hear about in South Arkansas as being, where everyone who wants to get in the music industry goes, especially country music. And so we came and toured it, and tuition was, I don't even remember at the time. It was like $30,000 a year, and it's double that now, I'm sure. And so it just wasn't in the cards for me financially. It was also a long way from home to be 18. I had never used a parking meter when I moved to Nashville. I was a very small town and very close to my family. And so just ended up not making a lot of sense for me. And I got a lot of in-state scholarships, and I worked really hard in school. I was a really diligent student. And so I had a ton of academic scholarships and ended up going to Henderson State University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and got a full ride, ended up getting to pocket some of that scholarship money and worked full time on top of that. And that's how I saved money to eventually make the move to Nashville in 2015.
Well, and then you made that move. You had come from a couple of, small towns. You had your college town and then where you grew up, but then you moved out to the Music City, which is a big city. How big of a culture shock was that? What was kind of the most surprising part of living in a city that big when you first moved out?
Specifically, Nashville is such a melting pot of people from all over. So it was just being exposed to other people who had grown up, it felt like, in completely different worlds than I did. So I got exposed to a lot of financially different backgrounds. So I had my first rich friends for the first time. I had my first city friends who had grown up in cities and had never been to the country, had never, ridden four-wheelers and horses and, grown their own garden and all of that stuff that I'm used to. Those people had never done any of that. And so I really just got I got my mind opened by things I had just never even thought about existing before. And Nashville is such a good place for that, because there's people from here that come from all over other countries, but especially all over the United States. And so I just really got to meet a little bit of everybody. I felt like I got a sampling of the kind of people that live outside of South Arkansas. And so it was definitely a shock. But the traffic was probably the biggest thing that stood out to me. I had never driven in the chaos that is Nashville. And now I'm a well immersed Nashville driver and will run you off the road before I let you run me off the road. But it took a while to adapt when I first got here.
I will say that Nashville's driving is very unique. I don't want to say they're it's bad drivers, but people that are going somewhere. Okay. People that are going somewhere are going to get there before you, regardless of what you want.
It is every man for himself out here. And I used to be like a cautious, polite driver. And now if there's a window of time for you to pull out, you better take it or you're going to get run over. If somebody's going above the speed limit, you better follow them because you're going to get run over. So I kind of learned to be a little more of an aggressive driver, and now I hang with the best of them. But yeah, it's like the only city that has, I think, 4 major interstates that cross. So it is absolute chaos here.
That's why it's so confusing. That makes me feel a lot better.
Oh yeah, and I gotta have that GPS, or I probably can't even get to my house. That's
that's
how it is
true.
here.
Well, we know that your driving has improved in the almost 10 years since you've been in the music city, but think back to when you first got there. I know a lot of artists, when they move out there, they're trying to get themselves established. They've got to pick up a side job or 14. What were some of the things that you did when you moved out there as you were trying to get yourself established?
Yeah, so just trying to pay your bills was my biggest struggle when I first got here. It's really expensive. Obviously, the cost of living like quadrupled from small town Arkansas, and so I hit the ground running, working several jobs at a time. And my first one was just I got hooked up with a temp agency, and so they just kind of fill you in spots. Like if someone's taking a 2-week vacation, you'll fill in for them at a front desk or things like that. And so I did that around town a lot. But one of my very first jobs was getting to work at the Grand Ole Opry. There was just an ad on like Indeed for the Opry shop is their gift shop at the Grand Ole Opry, and I just wanted to be so close, as close as I could to the Grand Ole Opry. That's been my biggest dream my whole life, was to play that historic venue that just represents the heart and soul of country music to me. And so I took that job. I think it was the lowest paying job I've ever had. It was all for just getting to be at the Grand Ole Opry. Not the best job ever. You sell like ornaments and guitar picks and harmonicas and t-shirts, and but I worked that job for I think probably 8 or 9 months, and got my name tag from that I held on to, and eventually got to make my debut with it. But that was one of them. I was working at a Victoria's Secret the same time. I managed one in a mall here in Nashville. That was a horrible job. I worked eventually I settled into the restaurant industry, and then I worked a few different serving jobs at the same time for my first 5 years in Nashville. So I was full blown server. I was working double shifts as much as I could to try to just stack that money, because any spare penny I had was going into recording more music or playing shows and having to pay for that travel. And so yeah, it's easier to tell you where I didn't work in Nashville, probably.
You got to get all over the place out there. I mean, it's a big city. You got to spread yourself out, get your face out.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned a lot too. I mean, there were some really, really hard times just trying to make it to all my jobs and keep myself alive. But I learned a lot of grit and hard work, and learned a lot about people, especially working in serving. So I am grateful for those jobs sitting here. But there was a time I would have told you that all could have kicked rocks, and I definitely wanted to move home more than once.
Well, I can imagine that's got to be pretty tough to keep yourself going, chasing that dream, especially in that city when there's so much other stuff going on and you're just trying to survive.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think a lot of folks from outside of Nashville have heard of places like the Opry, and also a little cafe called the Bluebird Cafe, where most people probably know that as the place that Taylor Swift was discovered by Scott Borchetta. But you have your own Bluebird story. Take us back to 2019 when you first connected with Justin Klump.
Yeah, I love that story. So the Bluebird obviously was up there with the Grand Ole Opry for me. If you do any studying of the history of country music, it's been the mecca for songwriters. I mean, massive, massive songwriters, got their start there. It's still where so many of our respected songwriting community still gathers, and you can go see the biggest of the biggest artists in that tiny, tiny cafe. It's just a magical venue. And so it was definitely on my bucket list, and they had quarterly auditions that they hosted. They were open to the public completely, but they were all kind of first come, first serve. And so you would just go line up on their sidewalk outside the Bluebird Cafe, which is in a shopping center in the Green Hills part of Nashville. And it's nothing like you think it would be. It's literally next to a dry cleaner. Yeah.
I saw it for the first time a couple of years ago, and I'm like, that one? That's the Bluebird?
I know. And I kind of love that part about it. But now the entire shopping center is gone. I think they're building high rises next to it. And so the Bluebird's still hanging on, but oh my gosh, I hope it hangs on forever. But yeah, I got in line, sat on that sidewalk, and waited until they finally opened the door. I was so lucky to get a spot to audition, and they give you, I don't remember, like a minute. You get to do a verse and a chorus of a song you've written, and that's your audition. And so I sang a song called Thrift Store Heart, and you get your call back, I don't know, a week or two later, and I found out that I made it through the first audition process, which was a dream come true. And then you get to start playing the Sunday Writers Night, which is every Sunday. I think there's at least 10 writers. And you each get up and get to play, I think, 3 songs. And then that's what I love about the Bluebird is there kind of was, I don't know anymore, but there used to be a format for like, if you want to play here, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I love some kind of formula or rule book for things. I'm that kind of person. And so it's funny that I chose the music industry, because in every other aspect of the music industry, there's no steps you take. There's no rule book. It is just absolute chaos out here. You just have to show up, and when a door opens, you better be ready to run through it. And so the Bluebird, you play those Sunday Writers Nights. You eventually get to play a Sunday Spotlight, and then you eventually get to book your own round. And so I made my ranks through there. But the first time I got to play ever, there was a bigger writer in that Sunday Spotlight spot, which is at the end of the Sunday Writers Night, and his name was Justin Klump. And I am pretty much an open book. When you put a microphone in front of me, I just start rambling. That's the only way I know how to do it. And so I was telling everybody in the audience that I was working 3 jobs at a time and was busting my butt, and that I just moved from Arkansas, and everybody I'd ever known and all my family was still in Arkansas, and I was out here by myself and just felt compelled to chase this crazy dream, and was saying, I don't know how I'm ever going to record music, because I don't know how I'm going to afford to, but I'm out here working and I'm going to figure it out. It's just being honest on the microphone. And Justin heard that and contacted me after and was so kind and supportive and said, hey, I would love to produce a song for you for free. And that was crazy to me, that someone would be that generous, that just met me. And he ended up being a life-changing mentor and friend and producer of mine. And so he produced the first 3 or 4 songs that I released. My very first song, Naked, came out in 2019. And that was all out of the kindness of Justin Klump reaching out to me after the Bluebird. And we built a beautiful friendship. And yeah, I owe him, throughout my entire career. And he knows that and knows how special he is to me. But such a God thing that he was in the room that night, and that he felt compelled to be a part of my career.
Well, and you mentioned Naked. That was the first song that you put out with his help. And not only did you get 100,000 streams pretty quickly, it's up over 500,000 now, but Spotify added you to a couple of different playlists. Being that was the first song that you released, that had to be pretty reaffirming that you were making the right decision, right?
Honestly, I don't know if I have seen the same amount of support on any song as I have for Naked. It was my first release into the world, and so it's the most vulnerable I've ever felt. I was like, yeah, I've moved to Nashville now. In 2019, I had been there 4 years, I guess, at that point. And so I was like, okay, here it is. I really do have to have something to prove here, and so people showing up for me and support me, just pretty much everyone I had ever met, shared that song and listened to it. And then having Nashville get behind me like that. Yeah. I mean, to be transparent, I struggle making playlists now with every release I have, with all kind of resources in place and a label and a booking agent and all of this, so it is crazy to me to look back and think that song that had no reason to do as well as it did just connected with so many people.
Well, and looking back, I know it was 5 years ago, so it's probably a little bit cloudy, but when you were working with Justin to put out a song, did you know for sure that Naked was the song that you wanted the world to hear, or did you go back and forth for a little while over, what song you actually wanted to put out as that first one?
We definitely had a batch of music. I started writing before I moved to Nashville, and then started co-writing like crazy once I moved here. And so I had 4 years at least of songs that I really loved. Maybe they weren't great yet, but I brought in we probably had like 10 to 15 that we had to narrow down. And then we ended up recording, I think we recorded 5 in that session. And then Naked just kind of felt the most authentic to me. That was written based on my actual dating process with my now husband. And I felt really close to that story. I was just having to decide if I was going to, let my trust issues get in the way and prevent me from having a relationship that could be the best thing that's ever happened, or if I was going to, tear my walls down and let somebody see me as I actually am, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which metaphorically can be called naked. And so I wrote that with Josh Matheny, who helped co-produce that project. He's the dobro player you hear on everything I've got out, and he's been a massive mentor and friend to me. And he's originally from Arkansas, so he was all I knew when I got to town. But yeah, Justin and Josh just really encouraged me to be honest and authentic with my music, which is what I've tried to do since I started singing at 7. And Naked just felt like the right choice, and I guess it was, because so many people supported it and still request it to this day.
That's awesome. With as much music as you've put out since then, for people to still be requesting that very first song, that's got to feel pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, and my band actually loves to play it. So anytime we have to play a shorter set list, they're all sad that we have to kick it off the set. I'm like, you can't make every set, but we try to play it as much as we can. It's awesome.
And I feel like this is a good time to pivot and talk about your songwriting a little bit. We know that you've been performing since you were really young, but when did you actually sit down and start writing songs for yourself?
So I definitely started out just with diaries, with journaling and just putting all my feelings on paper. I think that then turned to poetry of some sort, where I tried to put it in some kind of organized system. And then I was, sorry, the UPS man is here and now I'm very ADD distracted. Squirrel. And
important packages.
Probably my husband. There's no telling what he's got. New homeowner gets a lot of UPS packages.
That's true.
But yeah, I started with journaling, and I had so many feelings from such a young age. I was just a kid that just was always called the drama queen and was dramatic. And so I just finally found a safe place on paper to put those feelings down. And so kind of turned into poetry. And then I finally started sharing that with my mom more, and started sharing those poems and things with my mom. And that's when she was really encouraging about writing songs. And at first I was so annoyed by that. I was just like, I'm not a songwriter, Mom. Just because I'm a singer doesn't mean I'm a songwriter. Not every singer is a songwriter. And I don't know why I was so scared of it, I guess. And so she kept encouraging me, through me writing that. She was like, just sing your poetry, just sing it. And that's, as soon as I started doing that, man, I caught the bug, and I mixed my two favorite things, which was expressing myself with words and feelings and singing on top of it. And then we were off to the races after that.
So nowadays, when you sit down to write, are you somebody that schedules that time to write by yourself, or does it happen more organically outside of the times that they're bringing you into the corporate offices to write?
So I'll be honest, I really am in a spot of trying to get back to that organic kind of writing. Nashville makes that very hard in the path that I've chosen. So in 2020, I signed my first publishing deal, which was my goal, because if you have a publishing deal in Nashville, then you are writing music full time and you're getting paid a draw to do that. And so once I signed my publishing deal, all of those jobs I was talking about, I could quit all of them and just write and do music full time. And so that was the goal. But that also comes with making something that was a hobby and fun and a way of expressing yourself. Now it's a job. And that changes your whole mindset about it. And so instead of, hey, I'm feeling something really strongly right now, I'm going to go write a song about it. It's okay, from 11 to 3, Monday through Friday, you go to an office like you have an office job. You show up, you either meet songwriters you've never met before and try to figure out how to relate to them and be vulnerable with them within 10 minutes of meeting these strangers. Or you're getting together with your friends that you collaborate with a lot and you're trying to create something, but you're having to kind of turn your inspiration and creativity on like a faucet. And I don't do well with that. I just really don't. I still struggle with it often. I know a lot of really great songwriters that are able to write a song anytime they need to, but it's something I've always struggled with as a published songwriter in Nashville, is being able to tap into my creative energy and be inspired when I need to, instead of just when it comes to me.
Does it help you in that process more if you're in a co-write situation versus trying to, I've got to write a song by myself right now?
Yeah. So I used to write a ton by myself. And then honestly, once you move to Nashville, my mindset on that is the best of the best are in this city. The absolute best songwriters who are so committed to their craft that they've relocated from wherever they originally came from, sacrificed so much to be in this city. So why on earth would I not want to collaborate with those people who I know can make something? Maybe I could write a great song by myself, but if I'm going to be honest in the writing room, then the collaborators, if I have the right ones in there, are only going to make that song better and only going to help support me and help me translate what feelings I'm actually trying to get across. And so I've just been really lucky to get to work with the absolute best of the best. And so it's never been a case for me where I was like, I could have written this better by myself, because I get in rooms with people who listen to me and respect me, and vice versa with whoever I'm creating with. And so you're just always going to get a better song when you got that many people who are talented and have the same goal.
And that's such a humble way to approach that. I mean, we've done 120 episodes of this, and I ask that question quite often. And a lot of times we'll have people say, I write by myself, and then sometimes I'll bring it to a co-write. But that's such a humble way to look at it, that you are in the greatest spot for songwriting probably in the world. Why not use those resources that are around you and stress yourself out a little less?
Yeah. And it's different for every writer. And so I respect, some people aren't able to be as vulnerable with other people in the room. And like, that's just never been something I struggle with, is being honest and open, because I wish I knew how to lock that down more. Honestly, I wish I knew how to filter myself a little better, but I have no trouble opening up to other people. And that helps when I'm collaborating, because I'm able to just be completely honest with them in the room. And so I'm sure other people, it makes more sense for them to write by themselves, because they need to figure out how they're feeling about something before they bring it to somebody else. So I respect every kind of songwriter, doing whatever they need. But the Nashville model of songwriting is a very specific one. And I do think it doesn't work for every kind of songwriter.
Well, and one of my favorite songs that you've put out, it's called Thinking About Cheating. It just sticks in my head. Can you share with us the story behind writing this one and how this song came about?
Well, first of all, I love you even more because that's your favorite song. It is still probably, man, I can't pick a favorite. It's like all my songs are my children, and I can't say one kid's uglier than the other one or anything like that. But it is one of my top favorite songs I've gotten to be a part of writing. And obviously I play it every single show. I love it so much. That song honestly came from an authentic place. I got married in 2020 to the absolute best man I've ever met. He is still my husband to this day, which we're hoping for the rest of our life if I don't run him off first by writing songs like that one. But we were having a conversation right after we got married, and just talking about cheating. I have seen a whole lot of it in the world around me, and it's, run its way through my family. And so I just, when I think about marriage, I think about infidelity in a lot of ways. And so we were having a conversation about it. I said, listen, I'm just so blunt. I don't think I would ever cheat on you. I think if I ever felt the need, I would just tell you that I was thinking about cheating on you. And so he laughed. He doesn't say much anyways, which is probably why we work so well. But he laughed. It was kind of just a funny conversation that's pretty typical for us. And we let it go. But I had to write on Zoom the next day because we were still in the pandemic. And so we were all just trying to still keep music alive as much as we could and keep ourselves sane. And so I got on a Zoom with Alex Klein, who I had never met in person. And she is the first female producer to produce a country radio #1 solo. And so I already had a lot of respect for her and knew she was, I was really lucky to get to work with her. And then Autumn McIntyre, who is one of my very best friends and has been one of my top collaborators since I moved to town. And so I was just kind of, when you're trying to decide what to write, you're tossing around all kind of ideas, clever stuff you heard on TV or you heard somebody say, and they were asking me about, how it was being married. And so we just kind of organically brought it up, and I told them the same story I just told you, and they weren't scared of it. I was like, how would this conversation go if a wife sat down and, what if I ever was thinking about cheating? How would that conversation go? And so we just put on our biggest, imaginations and let ourselves run wild with it. And we channeled Loretta Lynn and Tammy Wynette and Kitty Wells and all these women that I was raised on that never filtered what they said. They put their emotions down unfiltered as they came to them. And so that's what we tried to do, was not worry about who we're going to offend and worry about what would people actually say if they were being honest about infidelity. And it turned out to a funny song. A lot of people don't read that deep into it. And that's the beautiful thing about music, is everybody gets to interpret it the way they want to. And so we definitely have fun with it. And I think I had my highest views on TikTok video. I think I had like 4 million views on one where I sat in front of my husband and played the song with him in the background. He wouldn't even participate in the TikTok. He was just in the background. I was like, well, I'm going to use you then. You just sit there and I'm going to make this work for me, because he doesn't like to do any of the video stuff. That's not for him. But it turned into a good attention getter for us on socials. And so I love that song so much.
Well, and it just gets stuck in your head. There's something about that melody that it'll just stick with you all day.
Well, it's old school too. I think that was one of my first introductions, as kind of a neo-traditional artist. I obviously love traditional country music, is my favorite kind. And I welcome all of the versions we've got in the genre today. I love that it's growing and expanding, and I love that everybody connects with it that much. But my personal favorite, leans a little traditional. And so I think you could hear that old school two-step in that song. And so I think I love it for a lot of reasons.
And then you took that song and you slapped it together with 5 other songs. You put out your first EP last year called Before the Record. Pull back the curtain on that a little bit. What is that process like for you, partnering with Plaid Flag Music and then releasing an EP?
Man, it was just trial and error, because I had never done it before. I found my publishers in 2020. So before that, I had been doing it all myself, which means getting a lot of it wrong until I know what's wrong, and then trying to figure out how to do it right. And so I found my now manager and biggest champion, Kendall Warren, was a part of Plaid Flag. That was her family's company. And they partnered with Stephanie Cox at Cobalt Music, who was doing our admin for that publishing deal. And so I just found two of my champions for the first time, in Kendall and Stephanie. And everyone in this town had been telling me to find your champions, and that pissed me off for so long, because I was like, okay, well, I'm out here busting my rear, screaming my name from the rooftops, and my champions are obviously not here because they're not coming out the woodwork. And then when they finally showed up 5 years into Nashville, I was like, okay, I get it now. And I just finally had 2 people who cared about it as much as I did. And so we had so many late night brainstorming sessions, and just all of every connection any of us had ever made. How do we call them? How do we use every resource that we have? And how do we keep growing and try to be better every day? And so we came up with this concept, and I had the idea before the record, because I hope one day to make my first record. I think that's a big goal of every artist, is they dream about the first day you get to make an album, a whole project. And so Before the Record was supposed to kind of let fans know that that's the goal, is that I hope to make music for the rest of my life. And this is just the first project I'm getting to put out. And it was obviously 8 years of hard work coming to fruition. I felt like we chose 6 songs that felt like if you just cut me into 6 pieces, that would be that project. And so we had a hard time narrowing down to 6 songs, but picked 6 of our favorites that we felt were important to put out into the world. And I found the right producer for the project in Paul Sykes, who is a hit writer. He's writing all the Lainey Wilson hits these days, and he's just doing great. And he's one of the nicest humans you'll ever meet. And he's a co-writer on, I think, like half of those songs at least on the project. So it just made sense. And he really pushes me out of my box production wise. I think we could produce things exactly how you think they would be produced and go super old school with them. And he helps elevate that and make it reach a whole lot more people than I think it would otherwise. And so we just hit the ground running and came up with all the concept off the cuff. We did a photo shoot in my husband's Jeep that's passed down from his dad. It's an old Jeep CJ5, and we took it in the middle of the woods, asked some people if we could use their property, and did a little photo shoot for it there. And it all was just, for lack of a better word, pretty ghetto the way it all came together. But it's so me that I've never known what I'm doing, and I'm not going to start acting like I do now, you know? So that project felt so honest and like a physical representation of the hard work me and all of my team had put in. And that caught the attention of some people in town and led to building an even bigger team around us.
Well, and I mean, bumping your way through the dark has gotten you to where you are. So don't give up on what's worked too much so far. But you mentioned it a little bit that you've really kind of leaned into social media. What are your social media handles and your website so people know when the eventual album does come out?
Yeah, so it's all Mae Estes, Maestes. There's a few Mae Estes music variations. I think Facebook is Mae Estes Music, but it is super important to note all of my handles have a blue verification check mark. I only have one account on every platform, and it is so crazy with the spam and fake accounts these days. And I'm not a super big successful artist, so I can only imagine the kind of stuff that they deal with. But man, it's hard to navigate. They're selling people fake t-shirts or spam links or, you know, collecting money from them. So I am on all socials, but I have a blue verification check mark on my only profiles on those. And yeah, just Mae Estes, and you can find me.
Nice and easy. And, you know, when people go out there to find you, you've got over 10 million streams of your music, but you've also gotten millions of streams on TikTok and YouTube. And we talked about that. I think TikTok is where I first discovered you back during COVID. How important has social media been for you over the last, 4 or 5 years of your career?
I mean, social media has arguably been the most important part. I would like to think my music itself, I mean, it always should be the most important, but if nobody hears it, then it doesn't matter how great your music is. Also, it can be the argument made. So I would say socials in this current industry we're in are so important. And go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was definitely hesitant to lean in at first. TikTok scared me. I saw all the dancing and things like that, and I was like, hold on. I'm a singer, and I don't know about none of this. And I just tried to embrace the platform and make it work for me and use it as one more tool in my belt, just like every other social media and every other show I get to perform, any of that. I just tried to make it work for me and fit it into my world instead of me fitting into its world. And had a lot of success. I will say I worked really, really hard at it. That stuff didn't just happen. I wasn't one of those people that just stumbled into like accidental virality or anything. Thank you so much. But I posted several times a day, every single day. I went live every Monday night for May Day Monday, which we still are trying to keep up with. We can't do it every night anymore now that the world has picked back up every Monday night anymore. But I just really gave it hell. I gave it everything I had and was like, I won't be the reason my music doesn't get heard by not showing up on this platform. And I think it has paid me back in kind a lot.
And like I said, that's where we had first discovered you. And then we saw that you were opening up the festival on the Next from Nashville stage at Watershed. And we were so excited to finally get to see you perform in person. But before we get into Watershed, before we get too deep, what was your first impression of the Gorge when you got out there?
Oh my gosh. Well, I am from the natural state in Arkansas. So we have a lot of beautiful scenery. We got mountains, lakes, rivers. I mean, all of that in Arkansas. But obviously, nothing compares to the gorge. It is unbelievable. It's just hard to even describe. I sent pictures and video to my family as soon as I got there, and I was just like, this doesn't even do it justice. I don't even know how to tell y'all. Y'all are just gonna have to come here with me next time we get to play to really take it in. Just unbelievable. And then to get to play music in that beautiful setting was just I'm still mind blown. And I keep looking at all the pictures because it truly doesn't feel like any of that was real.
I mean, the pictures really don't do it justice. But the most important question that I have to ask you, because you did play the gorge, did they let you hit a golf ball into the river?
Oh, buddy, I hit a few golf balls into the river. So I am, which those are also like biodegradable golf balls, which was interesting to find out. But yeah, I hit a few. I am not a great golfer. I am a golfer. I do go pretty often because it's way more fun to have a business meeting on the golf course in Nashville than in a stuffy conference room. And a lot of people golf here. So I had to just kind of pick it up just out of fun. And I love to be outside. So it's an activity that I don't really care about. I am so not good. But it was fun to get to do that there because that's what I had seen. All my artist friends obviously have been playing it for years, and I've just been sitting in Nashville watching all my friends go play these cool places. And so for me to get to be the one swinging the club and seeing it in real life, it was so cool.
And that's on my bucket list. I have next to no musical ability, but if I ever was to chase that dream as an artist, it would be simply so that I could hit a ball into the river at the gorge.
Oh man, it's epic. It's legendary. Like I said, I have seen so many of my friends post that, and I'm like, what even is this? Before I even knew what festival it was associated with and where it was, I'm just like, this is just iconic. And so yeah, it's pretty crazy we got to do that. I can't believe it.
So then from there, I assume that's something that happens after you play, or did you do it that morning?
So I kicked off the festival actually. Mm-hmm. I was the first act of the first day. And so we got our set done pretty early in the day, and then I changed into my overalls and went out to beat the heat out there. And so we went to watch my buddy Zach Top played right after us. So we went down there to catch his set. We were on the Next from Nashville stage. So we were on a stage that's up the hill a little bit. And then he was on the main stage, and there were a bunch of other awesome acts that day on both stages. And so we kind of just got to run around and play. And the hospitality, I will say that festival probably had the best hospitality of any festival we've played so far. It was just so many awesome things set up for the artists, including the golfing. And so we played all day after doing our quote work that morning.
That's really awesome. What does your pre-show ritual look like, especially at somewhere like that? Is it different than, say, a pre-show ritual at a theater?
Yeah, well, I feel like I still am trying to keep that consistent as much as I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I switched over from my AirPod. They're dying. Shocker. Everything I own that has to be charged is always dead. That's a character trait of mine. So I try to keep my pre-show ritual consistent as much as I can, no matter if it's a festival, we're outside, or we're before. When I'm with the band, we always pray. I can use all of the help from God I can get. So we just always like to check in and remind ourselves how lucky we are to get to do what we do. And thank God for letting us travel there safely, because we usually are having some gnarly travel, especially to Washington. That is not close to anything else.
It is not.
And Tennessee being home base, that was a long trek to get there for that show. So we usually all just try to check in with each other. I usually like to have a hot tea just to give me the best chance I can to sing to the best of my abilities. Even in the hot weather, I'm rocking the hot tea, which is kind of funny to some people, but that's some consistency I like to keep. And then mostly just making sure I'm in the right headspace to give the crowd the most of myself that I can.
Well, and as somebody that was in that crowd, it was phenomenal. It was a great way to kick off Watershed. You got the energy pumping, you got the crowd moving. It was great. And then we actually followed you down to watch Zach Top unknowingly.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So,
yeah. And that crowd was so good. Like you're always intimidated, and especially like I didn't know we were early in the day. It was my first time there. I don't think I have too many fans in Washington as far as, I haven't gotten to play in the area a lot. And so I was just a little nervous about who was going to give me a shot and be like, I've never heard of this girl. I'm not going to go watch her. And so we had people show up, which was amazing. And then we also had people like singing some of the words to my songs, which is just, that's mind blowing to me. That's not something that normally happens. And it's getting more and more, every show we play, there's more and more people that show up in my merch or things like that. But Watershed really showed us some love. So that was really, really special.
Well, and as cool as that stage and as cool as that venue is, you've had the chance to play somewhere even cooler than that. We talked about it kind of off the top of the show. You got a chance last year to jump into the circle at the Opry. And before we get into the experience itself, what was the invite like for you?
Well, of course, I already mentioned the Opry because that's part of my personality now. Nice to meet you. I'm Mae Estes. I play the Opry as much as they'll let me. Thank you. I just did not see the ass coming. And it sounds so silly to tell that story now because looking back at it, I should have. I guess I'm pretty like ADD, OCD, scatterbrain. I'm a creative in every way. And so it's very hard for me to pay attention to all the things I'm supposed to pay attention to at one time. So it does make sense that you could pull something over on me easily. But I worked at the Opry, like I said, my first year in town, and had made some friends, just with employees there. And so when it came back around that I finally got to go perform for the Opry team, this was after my EP was released, but before I signed with the label. So I guess the EP release finally gave us enough buzz that we could get a meeting with the Opry staff, and we got to play for them. And so I went in, played them some songs, got to tell them my story. They were so kind and receptive. And I was just like, okay, that's a good next step. And I tried not to think any further than that, because that is what will eat you alive in Nashville, is trying to plan this thing down the road too far, because you truly don't know what's coming next, and you don't need to waste your time trying to plan it. You need to show up best you can. And that's what I'm trying to learn. So they called me shortly after that, not to play the Opry, to play their staff holiday party. And so they have, so they have so much stuff going on during Christmas. This was in like January or February that they have to do their holiday party. And I thought, and they said, I think they even said, because you used to be an employee at the Opry, like, we thought it would be great to have you as the entertainment for the staff holiday party. And I was like, oh, amazing. Great. Cool. And I thought this was just one more opportunity for me to like keep showing them how much I care about the Opry, and like keep working my way in there. And I knew a debut was coming at some point in my career, because I wasn't going to stop until it came, but I didn't know how close I was. And showed up that night. I don't remember how long my set was, probably 30 minutes or so. I had my buddy Josh Matheny on dobro with me, which is not out of the usual. He's there as much as I can have him. And we just got to play for the staff. It was great little acoustic set. And I'm pretty sure the last thing I said was, man, I hope to see y'all in that circle one day. Thank you so much for having me, yada, yada. And I go to walk off the stage, and my buddy Josh he's a mess. And he usually plays dobro and sings harmony, and that's about it on the stage. And I go to walk off the stage after we finish the set, and he stays at his mic. And he starts saying, well, May, we had something we wanted to say, and I was like, oh, what? Because first of all, it terrified me that Josh was going to say anything off the cuff, because I was like, oh, you can't put a microphone in front of that boy. But he just started, bragging on me and talking about how hard I'd worked and that nobody deserved it more, and just giving me so much love and talking to the crowd. And even in that moment, I was like, what is happening? And I think I was just too overwhelmed to even connect the dots. And then he said, May, we were wondering if you'd want to make your Opry debut March 4th. And I was like, what? And nobody, another reason I didn't think it was happening is nobody was there with me but Josh. I had shown up to the gig by myself. And so I figured my management would be there. I figured my husband would be there. I figured my family would be there. I was like, if they were going to do this, like it would have been they would have picked a time when all of us would be here. And so my first thought was actually sad. I was like, oh no, I can't share this moment with my people. And turns out they were there the whole time. They come out, my photographer, my videographer, my husband, my manager. I FaceTimed my family immediately after, but it all happened in front of the Opry staff. And so now I truly have a really special relationship with everybody that works at the Opry because they've been on this journey with me for 9 years, and so I truly feel like a part of the family, and that is one of the coolest days of my whole life was that right there.
I mean, that's such a cool way for them to ask you, and it's so unique. And I think the Opry does a good job of that, of making each ask almost like a marriage proposal. It's very unique. It's very tailored to the person. And that just sounds like the best way to have you do it. A former employee playing for the employees and then getting asked to go up there. And I've talked to a lot of people and they say the first time they step into that circle, it's just a blur. How much of the night that you actually played do you remember?
It is a blur. I will say my Opry debut, the whole evening, the whole day, honestly, was like your wedding day. When you were just rushing around so much, you don't even remember who was at your wedding, who all you got to talk to. Like, that is how it felt for me. I had so many family and friends come up from Arkansas. Everybody I knew in Nashville was there. Like, it was just overwhelming, to say the least. And then I was lucky to film my Opry debut with the Opry. So you have a camera crew on you from the second you pull into the parking lot outside. So they're documenting everything that you do the whole time. And so you're doing interviews all day long. They're in your face. So it's kind of a whole lot as an experience in general. But when I walked out on the stage, that's when the peace hit me. I will say, like, the lead up to it and the countdown and standing side stage and all that is really nerve-wracking. But as soon as I stepped out there and got in that circle, it was like God spoke to me in a way that just reminded me, this is what anything hard I've put you through, this is what it was for. And this is where you're supposed to be. And this is where you get to take a breath and do exactly what you were meant to do. And I hope that doesn't sound cocky because I don't mean it that way, but that's the only kind of like peace I've ever found is when I'm singing and when I'm performing. It feels like that's the only thing I've ever been good at and given the tools I need to do it well. And so I found a peace when I stepped out there that was just like no other I've ever felt. And I've felt it every other one of I've played it 7 times now. Every other time I've stepped in that circle, there's magic there. So maybe I want to rephrase my vacation question and say, where do I want to take a vacation? It's in the circle at the Grand Ole Opry. Just want to sit there for 24 hours.
Well, there you go. Heck, I want to end the podcast on that one, but we've still got the final 4 coming up. But that is a great sentiment, Mae, and it's great to see that you put in all of that hard work and it paid off in one of the coolest ways possible.
Yeah, it's unreal, and I'm so grateful for my relationship with the Opry because when I'm having a tough time in the music industry, I go right there to remember who I am and what country music is and what I'm doing it for.
That's awesome. Well, Mae, thank you so much for jumping on here with us. Like I said, we end every show the same way with the final 4. You up for it?
Yeah, let's go.
It's time for the final 4.
Okay, question number 1. What is your favorite concert memory of a concert that you've attended?
Favorite concert memory.
These ones will make you think a little bit.
Well, I don't remember so much about the actual experience, but I will say I have a sweet full circle moment with my first concert ever. I just looked it up. It was in 2004 at, I think it's CenturyTel Center was what it was called at the time, but it was in Bossier City, Louisiana. It's an arena there. And my first big concert ever was Alan Jackson and Martina McBride in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a little sad to say I think I just went for Martina, and Alan could have not even been there, and I wouldn't have cared because I was that big of a Martina fan. But that was my first concert ever. And I just recently, in the last few months, I think it was April, got to play my first arena show. And it was in that same arena in Bossier City, Louisiana, opening for Hank Jr. And so I think that's got to be one of my core concert memories was being, that was 21 years ago was when I got to go to that concert, 20 years ago, I guess. And getting to make my debut on that big of a stage on an arena show at the same place I saw my first concert. That was really cool.
That is really cool. That might be the best answer we've ever gotten to that question, Mae. Good work.
Do you know I didn't realize it was the same place until after the show, or I would have said it on stage. But yeah, I was like, I think my first show was I knew what it was, but I thought it was in Little Rock. And turns out it was in the exact same arena. So
that's really
so
cool.
Crazy.
Okay, question number 2 of the final 4. Who are the 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify or Apple Music? And you can cheat and look if you need to.
I mean, it's always Keith Whitley. People are going to think I'm crazy, but I do listen to Keith Whitley nonstop. I never get tired of it. So Keith is always up there. I listen to Patty Loveless nonstop in the same way. I try to I don't know. I need to listen to new music. I just don't want to. I like what I like, and it's the old stuff, and I know it well, and I can sing my heart out to it, and I love that kind of stuff. So we got Keith Whitley. We got Patty Loveless. I will say I came off a retreat this weekend with an artist who I love and have been jamming her music since I met her a few years ago, and her name is S.J. McDonald. So I'm always streaming some S.J. McDonald too.
That's a great 3. I mean, I think we probably could have guessed the traditional side there just based on everything that you've told us already. But
I know, and I've
always good to find a new artist.
Yeah, I've been trying to make some, content for socials lately, and they're like, "Can you cover anything from like this decade?" And I'm like, "No, sorry, all my heroes are dead.
Not for me.
Not for me."
Okay, question number 3. And now that you've been in Nashville for almost a decade, I feel like you're qualified for this one. For folks that are traveling into Nashville, where would you recommend they eat? Give us like a breakfast, lunch, and dinner places.
Okay, breakfast is Ladybird Taco. I think they're based out of Texas, but they have 2 locations in Nashville. Incredible breakfast tacos, great coffee. Great agua fresca. They have a watermelon agua fresca. I highly recommend. And their salsa is fantastic. So Ladybird Taco, they do have lunch, but breakfast is there.
Okay. Ladybird Taco.
For lunch, you're going to go right across the street from Ladybird, and you're going to go to Mitchell's Deli in East Nashville. Absolutely iconic deli. Sandwiches, you can't go wrong with any of them. I get the turkey avocado. Really, really great lunch spot. For dinner, where are we going?
This one's always the tough one. There's so many great choices in Nashville.
Well, there's a new restaurant every day in Nashville.
That's true.
I will say I got engaged at this restaurant, and so it's really special to me because of that, but also it's really good. There is a place in Germantown called Sedona Tap House, and it's like a good steak or good seafood, but all still reasonably priced. So I really love Sedona Tap House.
Well, there you go. Mae Estes just planned your day in Nashville, at least food-wise. I figure we could probably fit into Country Music Hall of Fame or the Opry somewhere in between there.
Well, then you're going to go to Scoreboard on a Tuesday night, and you're going to watch my buddies Old Hickory that play there every Tuesday. You're going to get some Wooby Nuggets, which are fried cheese balls, which we all know I endorse that. Cheese of any kind, done. And you're going to enjoy a good night of country music there.
The best part is if you go to Google and you type in Wooby Nuggets, Scoreboard is the first thing that pops up. So
really?
You know that it's got to be good.
Oh, they're my favorite.
I just wanted to see a picture of them. It was the very first thing.
Oh my God. I make meals out of those a lot, which I don't recommend. You should eat something other than fried cheese balls, but they will sustain you in a pinch.
And they look delicious. Okay, Mae, last question for this whole thing, and take as much or as little time to answer this one if you want. If you could pick one thing for people to take away from your appearance on this show or just your music in general, what would it be?
This feels like a foot in mouth question. I need to think hard about that. Man, honestly, all I want to leave the world doing is putting some more honesty into the world. I want to make music that provokes thought and encourages people to feel safe to be themselves. That's what I want. So I hope that people listen to my music. I hope that's what they hear out of getting introduced to me on this podcast, which thank you so much for letting me share my story with people who haven't heard it. That means so much to me. But I hope people are encouraged by me and meeting me and my music and hearing my music, to just feel safe to be who they are.
That was perfect. That was such a great way to end it. Mae, thank you so much for jumping on here. We'll definitely have to do it again in the future, and you'll definitely have to make it out to Washington more than just for Watershed.
Hey, done. It is beautiful up there. I just got to catch me a good flight, and then we'll get there.
There you go. Guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's a country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Mae Estes.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast. This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Gwinn. And as always, hosted by Pisani.